All right, we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Larson. I am the Member Relationship Manager at Grantmaking, and we are really excited to welcome you today to the webinar, Measuring and Sharing Your Charity's Social Impact with SmartSimple. Thank you, SmartSimple, for presenting this and being here today. Just so everyone knows, you have been muted when you join, and we encourage you to stay muted. But definitely encourage you to use the chat to answer questions or to ask questions, share your comments or feedback or anything that you have during the session. We definitely want to make it interactive, and we want to make sure you have a chance to ask your questions. So please do put those in the chat. You're welcome to keep your video on if you'd like, but just so you know, if you do keep your video on, it will be part of the recording. So that's just something to keep in mind. So with that, I will turn it over to our presenter, Eric Lauer, to take it away. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Claire. Appreciate that. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session today. So appreciate you attending. As Claire mentioned, today we'll be discussing measuring and sharing your charity's social impact. And I got a small slide presentation for you today that'll walk you through some of those. And then we'll actually be jumping into a live demo. So I'll kind of show you how we've helped some organizations share their impact in a public way or just internally, and see how you can do so with your system. So just a little bit of background on us in case you're not familiar. We are a global provider of software solutions, so a business process automation, including Grantmaking. So we have users accessing the software from over 190 countries. We're hitting about just over 250,000 users monthly, active users that can access the system, and we service about 450 plus clients globally. And we've had a lot of proven success with many of those clients and agencies. Some of the things that we have as part of our organization we like to highlight is just things that are 24/5 live support, and also critical, which is 24/7. And we also do, hopefully in the future, I know we'll be doing all these remotely lately, but when travel kind of opens up again, we like to do client roadshows, so local regional visits, getting the community together, as well as hosting our annual conference and local user groups. So that's all I'll say about us, and I'll get right to the point here. And but really, the discussion we want to have today, and feel free to interrupt or ask questions through the chat, as Claire mentioned. We can make it a conversation piece, but really is how are you communicating impact? So a lot of the different ways that we're seeing organizations do that today, you may not realize it, but even like annual reports, internal documents, that presentations to management or board, we would count that as all communicating your impact, even though they may be for internal purposes only. But there's still presentations and data that you'll need and use that you want to share and show that the impact that your organization is having. A second point to that is really taking that same data and then presenting it in a visual format. So again, whether that could be internal to staff, users of the system, maybe board members, or even externally on a public website that you may want to share with your community and show the good things that you're doing in your regions that you operate in. So really from here, I'm actually just going to jump right into the demonstration rather than looking at slides all day. I'm sure you do that enough. Just to give you a proper introduction, sorry, that's my end slide there. But my name is Eric Lauer. I'm one of the co-founders of SmartSimple, as well as our SVP for our platform solution. So that's everything to do with our product. At the end of the presentation today, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to call us, you can visit our website, or even email our team, platformsolutions@smartsimple.com. So what I'm going to do here is end our slideshow and jump right into the system. So I'm going to start first with some ways that you can share your impact just internally within the platform itself. So we do that a lot, and apologies if I'm not looking at the screen, just got my window up here in front of me. But it's really just to present dashboards, portals that you can use just to convey information. And the nice thing about that is you're already in the system. you don't have to go digging around for the information. You can present it to the users, especially if they're casual users and they may not be as familiar with the day-to-day operations. But if you present the information appropriately, then you can glean a lot of information from that. Just like this, simple shortcuts that lead into an aggregate number, maybe the different programs that you're operating, the ability to then go from that high level number and then drill down into individual records that could comprise the results. The same is true with just simple charts and graphs. A lot of these are interactive, which is nice. So you can get some insights as to what your organization is doing in terms of the programs that you're operating, the regions that you're operating in, things of that nature, right? It doesn't always have to be about members. It could just be about who you're helping in the community, maybe a demographic of types of people that you're helping across the programs that you're using. Again, it really helps if these things are interactive, so the user can work with it to see the information they want and analyze it that way. So that's a big way of really showing the impact, but more from an internal perspective to see how you're operating within the programs that you're using, programs that you're offering to your community, or even the numbers and budgets that you have available is showing some insights. We can take that one step further and use a different, same idea, dashboards, things like that, in terms of budgets, what you have available, what's remaining, what is being committed to date, what impact are you having in terms of dollars spent. But there's other ways to measure that impact as well. So in this case, we can do something like this, which is sort of an impact chart. So within the platform, we're able to define criteria in just terms of how you're measuring your success. So in the case I'm using here is a research-based funding. And what we're trying to determine is, how many achievements, so maybe publications, maybe new IP, for example, is a result directly of the funding that we're providing. So you're then able to create these calculations and then plot it on a quadrant type grid, where impact would be as you go higher into the chart, and the funding going from right to left is sort of increasing as you go there. So the ideal sweet spot would be up here, meaning you're getting the most impact for the least funding. And the areas you want to avoid is probably down here, where you provide a lot of funding, but you're not getting so much impact. So using tools like this really can help convey visually what you're doing with the grants that you're funding. And sometimes it's nice to see it in a sort of chart form or visual form. It's easier to process than just looking at a list of numbers, let's say, in an Excel spreadsheet, for example. So we can take that same idea and maybe plot it in a map form, right? So we can say, okay, where are we making our grants? What's the total grants? These things you're able to be interactive. Choose where, the system will automatically plot the areas where you've had some funding. And then you can get into the details of what's been going on. What was that grant about? Put a little summary on the screen there, maybe search for different grant amounts. So even a little tool like this, even if it's being used internally, can be very helpful to understand sort of what's been going on with your granting, your funding, areas that you are focused in. Maybe you can see high impact areas, across the regions that you serve, and some patterns that you wouldn't be able to glean otherwise. So one thing that we're seeing too is something like this, where you can create a module to sort of track your priorities. And all this is really doing is taking the information that you have in your system and then rolling it up. So if you have different categories, in this case, we've kind of defined our own areas that we're funding here in our pretend system. But what a lot of people are doing as well is comparing them to sort of global standards. So the Sustainability Development Goals, for example, by the UN, people are rolling up their impact into those areas to see how they measure up. So for example, here, you can specify what it is that this program is used for, and then taking all the granting that you have within the system and rolling that up to see how you're doing. And in the case of this, what's really important is just defining, what is the impact that you're trying to achieve, and making sure you're tracking that information in the system. So that's kind of key. So regardless of which system that you're using to track your grants, it's really important to have a definition of what it is that you're trying to achieve, whether it's dollars, whether it's impact like here, number of publications, IP being generated from the funding, maybe it's number of people being helped. That's all possible through the platform as well. So I've been focusing mainly on the internal side of things, but I wanted to spend some time showing you how people have taken this data and then exposed it externally to share with your community. And these are all live examples, some of the clients that are using our product and how they are conveying that information that they're gathering within the platform and then sharing it with their external community. So here we have an organization in Ontario, and what they've chosen to do is actually take the data from the system and then present it more in a sort of a story format. So they're allowing users to come in, search by grant type or action areas that they've defined. So one of the key things here is they have a well-defined types of grants, as well as the well-defined area or community of people that they're trying to help. And then what they're doing here is presenting those stories on the website with the information, again, coming from the system. So this is all data that they were capturing within the SmartSimple Cloud, but they're choosing to display it in this nice story format, showing, give a little explanation of what the grant was about, what approach that project took, and what impact it had on the community in terms of how many people were helped and how they achieved that. So this is one way to, it's very like a narrative approach of how they've chosen to explain the impact that they've had in the community. So, and I think that's a pretty good way to share that story, share that experience, and to get other people maybe to drive them to the website or say, hey, maybe I fit, I know people in a similar situation. Maybe we can get some funding from your organization to do similar things for our communities. If we look at another approach, and this is going more again into a research granting, it's really taking that data from the system and presenting it in this sort of format. So this is, it tells a story, but in a different way. So rather than a narrative approach, it's presenting the raw data, but exposing it to the external community. So you can kind of see over time how certain projects have affected the different areas that they're focused on with this organization. So for them, it's primarily marine research, and they're showing how they've applied the funding that they've given out into the different areas that they serve. So they've combined this as well with a searchable database where I can get more details onto the actual awards or projects that they have funded. So this is a nice approach as well. We're using a combination of visuals in terms of graphs and charts, as well as actual raw data they're exposing at the same time within a chart like form, again, on their public website. If we take what they've done a step further, in this case here, we've helped them take that same data that they're collecting within the platform and projecting it in a more visual way from a map perspective. So in this case, they're doing a lot of research, marine research. They actually have a boat, I believe, that goes out and they do research for different things in Europe. And in here, you're able to, we've translated the data from the platform and presenting it to, working with tools or the maps to kind of show, oh, this is where they surveyed, and this is the kind of work that they've done, showing some details on the right-hand side about the funding that they've done, and then presenting an individual form to say, hey, here's where, we did this survey, this is how long it lasted, this is when we did it, and this was the route that was plotted and followed on the vote. The key thing here is all the data came from the system. It's just a matter of taking that information and putting it into a visual format with which you can then translate for your external community to then take a look at. If we go over here, some more research funding, I really like what they've done with the data in the system. They kind of used, again, a combination of both. They're presenting what they've done in terms of research locally here in the US, and then also some funding that they've done globally. And they've combined that with a searchable tool where you can actually search the projects that they've funded and get more details into the research. But the nice thing about this is that it's all interactive. You can see here, I can zoom in the map. You can click into the particular state and then see the funding that they've generated in that area. And then here, take the details, click onto the row, and then they're giving you more information as you kind of dig deeper into the area. And then from there, they're presenting another form with which you can then go and actually just search yourself. Maybe I want to do by particular categories, priority areas, and then search, and then you're able to view again the data that's coming from the system, but in a more detailed way, and see this presented. I can see the details of where they funded, what the institution was, who was a primary investigator, applicant in this case, and sort of the story around the project and the details that they've done. And then providing a means to export or print this out so someone can take that information back from them. So a lot of good examples of how people are using the data that they're tracking within the system and then presenting it outwards. Here's another one that we like to showcase. And what I really like about this one is just, it's nice and easy. It's just taking a map of the different areas, showing the funding on the left-hand side here for the different states that they funded in the different areas within Mexico. And then in here, you can offer them some different drop downs for different programs that they funded, and they can kind of see the details of all that here with the map. So we're seeing the maps become more and more popular. People really like the visuals, especially the interactivity of them. One of the ones I like the best happen to be local to where I am. But I really like what we've done with them here is actually take their granting data and then put it on an interactive map. So in this case, you can drill down. So this is similar to what I showed you from internal to the system, but they're presenting it in an external way. So someone interested, maybe I'm in the arts and I'm looking for funding. I can see what they've done in my local community. I can drill down, get specific information on a thing that they may have funded in my area. The nice thing about this is that they've included the ability to overlay or put these overlays onto the map. So this one here is now showing me the political boundaries of the city. So I can kind of see, oh, how come there's not much funding going over here in my area? Is there a reason for that? Is it because it's more on the outside of the city, on the outskirts, or it seems like everything is concentrated in that downtown core. Another thing that they've done is being able to showcase the local areas, the local neighborhoods. So if I'm not interested in the political boundaries, maybe I'm interested in my local neighborhood. And it's like, oh, maybe I live in this section here. Let me drill down and say, oh, guess what? I live right up the road. What did they do in my neighborhood? Oh, great. They funded a blues performance down the street. So maybe I'll check that out next time. Or if I'm an artist in that community, maybe I can investigate some funding for myself in that spot. So that's one thing I really like what they did in this, is that being able to present the data, show it to the end users and see how they've actually impacted, really local, everyday people, where I can kind of go myself and say, oh, here it is. It's not these, huge global things, but something that affects me in my local community. And then a couple other things here is just more of the same that I've already showed, but really just, again, exposing the data that's in the system and being able to present that to the end user so that they can kind of filter it out themselves, maybe links to the organizations that were funded, and really just kind of tell a story that way by allowing people to see what was just really transparency is really what I'm driving at here, where people can read themselves and say, hey, I'm doing some similar research. Maybe I can apply for the funding as well. They've done something similar. and see what they're doing. And it doesn't even have to be just for grants. I mean, in this case here, we have some clients doing it in terms of awards. So these are like scholarships, right? So, or bursaries or big grants. So if I'm a student, even taking that as an awareness, like, oh, wow, I go to that school. I wonder what's available for me as a student. Maybe I can apply for that bursary, or maybe I qualify for that particular scholarship that I didn't know about. And then there's tools in the system that can help, kind of refine a search or match me as a student to a particular award. So, I mean, even that falls under kind of showing your impact and say, hey, I didn't realize that there were all these available areas of help, whether it's, like I said, scholarships or bursaries that could help me even in my studies. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, just for grant making, but in terms of supporting students in their education. So that's really all I really had to present today. It's kind of short and sweet. If there's anyone who has any questions, I'd be happy to take them now. I don't know if anything has come in, Claire, or have a dialogue, or anyone wants more information on how this can be achieved. There's many different ways to get the information from the system to an outside source, whether it's straight up reports, through APIs. We have a lot of built-in tools that just allow you to do this on your own. So happy to have those discussions with anyone who's interested.
So no questions just yet, but I think give people another, a little bit of time to think about them, or if there's anything
Sure.
that, anyone wants Eric to go back to and show again, definitely allow some time for that.
Sure. And even if there's other ways of, how are people doing it now? Maybe we haven't thought of a way that people are sharing their data or would like to share it easier that we can think about it or help them along those lines.
Okay, so there is a question, actually a couple. So how can we achieve this reporting on our own through the SmartSimple system? Are you able to take us through a step-by-step process of reporting on the system?
I can actually, sure. Yeah, I'll keep it a little bit, I'll try not to wear my training hat too much and go too deep into it, but just to show you some of the tools, like even some of the things like this, like the maps that we showed, these are all, they're built in. So you don't need to even talk to a developer or do anything too crazy to set them up. So for example, in here, I'm in the settings screen now. For those who may not be familiar with SmartSimple, I'm just in a configuration area of the platform. And in here, I want to work on some of the configuration around the applications. So we actually have a section down here under features and options in which you can program this yourself. So if you go into impact maps, you can make as many as you like. And in this case, I'll just edit the ones that are existing. But really, it's just giving it a name. You can define which programs that you want to display on the map. Maybe you want to have a map for each program or put all the programs in one map. You can tell the system which grants should appear on the map based on the status, right? So maybe you only want approved ones, or maybe awarded, whatever status is that you use. And you can even apply filters that you've created in the search areas of the system and apply those here to get a more granular result. You can then tell the map, which dollar amount field that I should use and what should I do with it? Are we summing them up, or are we just counting how many records in that particular area? And then, some configuration in terms of how you want to display that number, how granular you want to get. Once that's there, you can choose to apply a map kind of theme to the look and feel of it. And any of those KMLs, the KMLs are those overlays that I was talking about that you saw for the Toronto Arts Council. They're usually publicly available. So you can just point to the type of where that you can find them online. And then you can either have them preloaded onto the map or have them optional or triggered by the user, like I showed you on the Toronto Arts, where they tick a box and then it puts the overlay on. But once you set these parameters and you click save, you can just go ahead and preview it. So it generates a link for you. it puts everything here on the map, all ready for you to use without having to do any fancy programming or anything like that. And the nice thing, you can generate as many of these maps as you want. So we do a lot of work in Europe. So we wanted a map that when it loads, it defaults to that area, rather than having to scroll around. If you're centered in the US, then have the map center on the US when it loads, or if you're in other areas, or even define your own custom coordinates and say, well, I want the map to kind of generate here because that's where we do a lot of our funding. So you can have the map kind of focus on those areas when it loads. So that's a lot of the ways you can just program that in, and then they're available to you either internally. You can add them to your portal, or present them externally, much like we've done here, and put them on an external website, for example. So hopefully that was good enough there. One more thing on that topic, though, before we get to another question, is all of our reports in the system can then be made external. So a lot of these reports that you saw, where you just saw the laundry list of data, if you build a report in the system, so that's all done through the report tool. But what you can do with it is make it enabled for the internet, and the system will actually generate a link for you, again, that you can populate onto your website, or you can use a tool like these, which is a OData connector. This is not something that we made up. It's just a common protocol to transfer data between systems. Actually, I had that. I didn't talk about that in the presentation, but that's what we're using here. So this is a live feed into Excel. Tools like Power BI or Tableau also support this. You can read it in, and then you can make your own visualizations. You can take that raw data and then use these tools. I made a pivot table here. You can make a pivot chart. Tableau and Power BI are excellent tools to display visualizations. So you can just grab this link right here, pop that into those third-party tools. They even have an option for importing OData links, and then use that to drive your visualizations. And we'd be happy to talk about that in more detail and how you can do that for your specific system offline if you like.
Thank you. Another question is, how do you track data for collaborative efforts?
Perfect. So in that case, maybe I can do that through here. It's really just defining the people on the grants themselves. So if I look here to a particular award, you can add as many contacts or participants as necessary. In here, for example, we're gathering team information. So we're able to specify other people, whether they're collaborators, whether they're co-applicants, and it's really just associating them with the grant. So in this case, we have our primary applicant, but in the contact section here, I'm able to add any number of people and specify what role they're playing against that project. So in this case, I have the primary, 3 co-applicants, and we're even defining who the staff member is responsible for this project, as well as any even signees, things of that nature. It's all possible through here.
Another question, is the data shared in an open source or through password?
Either or. So you can keep it open where there's no password required, or you can make it so that it's, you have to be authenticated to access the information. And that's your choice as the user.
Thanks. Okay, another question. Now they're starting to come in. What trends have you seen regarding impact reporting? There were many mapping examples shown.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest ones that we've seen in trends is actually taking the data and then putting it in a map. So the two different ways that we've kind of seen being used more and more would be this trend to take the raw data and plot it into charts and graphs, but also take that data and then put it into the map format. If there's one here, I can show you in the system as well. We did this one for a client in Europe, and they wanted to expand more on the out of the box approach, but they do water pumps is their main business. They're not even but they have a foundation as part of their corporation, and they run a lot of events, do a lot of donations. So what they've done is categorized or picked these areas of impact, primarily from the sustainability goals that the UN defines, and then saying, well, this is what we funded, and we're directing all of our impact into these categories. So they also have an internal program called Water to Life, in which they're using a measurement of how many people that they've provided with access to clean water, things of that nature, throughout the globe. And again, they've taken this approach of being able to, look and define. It's like, oh, we held a walk here to raise funds to help certain communities, some projects that they ran, to, like in here, they raised a bunch of money, again, for water-based efforts globally. So I would say in terms of a trend, it'd be moving towards this. So maps, visualizations in terms of charts and graphs, and then kind of presenting those all in a visual format is what would be nice to do, and what we're seeing a lot of clients moving towards now.
The next question is around pricing. So how much does SmartSimple cost in comparison to other grants management systems like Salesforce or Giving Data, for example?
Sure. So I don't have those other vendor numbers in front of me, but typically whereas we have different pricing tiers. So I think what sets us apart from some of the other vendors is that we don't just have a fixed price. So I know certain vendors may have a fixed price for any user of the system, but we distinguish between your internal community, so staff, and maybe casual users or external users. So we tend to offer those in sort of these bulk packages. So if we go back to our example from before, when you have maybe a number of applicants or people collaborating around a grant, you're really only paying full licenses for the staff members. So, your program staff, grant staff, and then people like board members, reviewers, applicants, anyway, anyone who would be considered external, they kind of get lumped into these lower priced or bulk packages where you don't have to necessarily, they're not treated as a user. So, maybe you're a corporation and you have your employee base, right? Maybe you're doing donations and things like that. So you wouldn't be paying a full user license for people like that. So yeah, the pricing, you can go to our website. I think it's on there, what we charge for the different rates for the different types of users. But we do distinguish between that. And I think that sets us apart from some of the other organizations who just have a fixed price. It's like if you're logging in, you're paying this much.
Thank you. Another question is isn't necessarily around reporting, but the question is, I was wondering if we can use SmartSimple to log grant queries and then use data from it to produce some kind of reporting. Is that possible through the system?
Yeah. So do you mean queries coming in from external?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in that case, yes. So a lot of the clients here with these external pages, you can put the same analytics that you would like Google uses to see, how many people are clicking on or creating that search, who's doing that kind of thing. So that's definitely supported, but using those other tools, you can embed them into your page, and then it can track sort of where are people coming from, how many times are they searching for this, what are the results of those that's kind of the search activity.
Thanks. I'm not seeing any there's not any more questions, but
Yeah, those are great.
yeah, great questions.
But it's definitely a topic. I mean, it's, I think it's becoming more and more of a bigger topic. How is your impact? How are you measuring it? How are you conveying it? So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I think from, what we're seeing, people who have achieved it quite successfully are very clear on, what data are they tracking? What is it that they want to show? Whether it's something like this, or even that we take that first example of that narrative, if they got very clear ideas of what they want to show, that tends to work out best. Even in this case, it's like, yeah, we're measuring everything against these categories, and this is how we're going to display it. So if you have that sorted out, then we can definitely help you and provide you with the tools to then convey that information to your community.
Yeah, just a follow up on that same question around queries. Can you just talk again about what are those external links we can embed for external queries?
Oh, it's the, I think that it falls under that SEO thing. Sorry, I'm not in the marketing thing, but you can embed these tracking, these analytics into these external pages because they're just HTML pages. You can, it's like, sorry, Google does that with that. They know everything you cannot. So, but you can have these little widgets or whatever that will track a user's activity. So because these are all external facing sites, then you could embed those analytical tools in there. And to be clear, sorry, it's not us providing that. It would be those third-party tools to track web activity on your public facing sites.
Got it. They said got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no more questions as of now, but I will say, Eric, hopefully it's okay to include your contact information in a follow-up email. So in case people have any direct questions or wanted more of a follow-up one-on-one, hopefully that's okay to share that.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Yeah, not seeing any more questions. So I don't know if you wanted to wrap, if you had any final words or anything, any last points.
Yeah, no, just thank everybody for their time. Appreciate attending today. And yeah, it's a topic that we're really happy to discuss. So if anyone has any offline questions or discussion around it, we'd be more than happy to engage in that and hearing your ideas. A lot of the stuff we showed today wasn't even initiated by us. Most of our best ideas have come from our client base. So if there's other ways that you are working towards to show your impact, or how you're showing your impact that you think you might be able to help you out with, then we're more than happy to have those conversations, see how we can help you out.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Eric and team. It's been great. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. We will share the recording and, like I said, Eric's contact information. So if you want to follow up, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, hope everyone has a great afternoon, and see you at another event in the future. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.